I think mindset is attitude. And it's if you believe you can do something or if you believe you're going to fail, you're going to do it. Either way.
Yeah.
And many, many years ago, for what we're going to talk about today, I decided that attitude is everything. I can do this. And it's gotten me through a lot in life.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's amazing. Hello, everybody. So excited for another episode and a very special guest today. My new friend, Jeanne Baldwin, is here today, and she is going to be sharing a wonderful inspiration for all of us based on her story. So I can't wait to hear. Welcome, Jeanne. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
Oh, my God. I am so happy, and I can't wait to dive deep into your story, which has, I feel like, everything. It has the adversity, it has the lessons, it has inspiration. And so I'm so glad and so honored that you have decided to share it with us. And before we get into it, tell me a little bit about what mindset means to you. I know for me, that whole concept of the warrior mindset is huge. So I always ask people, like, on a scale of 1 to 10, warrior to warrior, where are you? Tell me what mindset means to you.
I think mindset is attitude. And it's if you believe you can do something or if you believe you're going to fail, you're going to do it. Either way.
Yeah.
And many, many years ago, for what we're going to talk about today, I decided that attitude is everything. I can do this. And it's gotten me through a lot in life.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's amazing. So on a scale of 1 to 10, where do you say?
I'd say a 10.
A 10. I love it. I love it. Beautiful.
Yes.
Hey, warrior mode on. Beautiful. Beautiful. Okay. So let's dive into it. If you're ready, this podcast is all about getting real. It's all about going deep. And I want to share your story, not just, as an inspiration, but hopefully people will leave with some tools, some takeaways that they can implement in their lives right away. So tell us if there was a time in your life when you weren't at a 10 and you were at a really low, like 0, 1, 2 kind of range. What was going on, or what can you share in that story for us?
Sure. In my later 20s, I got very, very ill, and I went to the doctor a lot, and I kept getting sicker. Thought I had mono. All I did was sleep. I got real arthritic. Just my body was falling apart. And finally diagnosed with an autoimmune disease called lupus. And I got to the point where I was hospitalized for a total of 30 days over about 6 or 7 weeks.
Wow.
And they didn't think I was going to live.
Wow. And you said you were in your early 20s?
I was in my later 20s, actually.
Oh, wow. That's brutal, right? At that age to hear something like that. What did that feel like when you first heard it?
Well, you know what? I didn't hear it. I had just been admitted the first time to the hospital. And just briefly, I had watched my first husband shut down from cancer. I watched him let go. And I was laying there after months of being very ill. And I remember thinking, it was before Thanksgiving. I was thinking about Christmas, and I was thinking about Christmas without being there. And I was thinking everybody would be sad. They'd be okay. And so my roommate at the time and my dad were in the room with me, and I piped up with, dying wouldn't be so bad.
Wow.
And my roommate looked at me and she said, "Don't you ever talk like that again." And I realized what I was doing. I was letting go.
Wow. So wait, let's back up a little bit. Oh my God.
Sure.
So you were married at this point?
I know I was married very young, and he died of cancer when I was very young. I was 21 when he died.
Oh my God. So when did you get married?
I was 18. I was a kid.
Oh my God. But I
knew a lot when I was 18, I thought.
19, 20, 21. That's 3 years. Oh my gosh. That sounds devastating already in itself, right?
It was hard. Yeah.
Oh, wow. I can't even imagine. Okay. So you got married at 18. At 21, you lose your husband through cancer. Oh, I'm so sorry. Thank you. Yeah. I can't even imagine what that's like at the age of 21 to have to deal with grief like that. And then at around late 20s is when you got diagnosed with lupus.
Correct.
And that's when you said dying wouldn't be so bad.
Dying wouldn't be so bad. And when she said to me, "Don't you ever talk like that again," that's when it frightened me, because thinking about not being there anymore wasn't frightening. I was sliding right into it. Yeah. And then when she said that, I thought, I'm 28 years old. I have too much to do. I am not dying. yet. And
Yeah.
I started with, attitude is everything. I can do this. Just getting to the bathroom was like a monumental effort.
And so you were in pain? Was it pain all the time?
No, my kidneys were shutting down.
Oh my God. Okay.
And with kidney failure, surprisingly, there is no pain. My nephrologist,
Good.
who's a
Yeah.
kidney doctor, she said they did a biopsy and she used that slide in her class for 20 years. It was the worst she'd ever seen. And to
Really?
look at me, who would think, right?
Right. Yeah. Wow. So, okay. So for people who don't know what lupus is, tell us a little bit
Mhm.
about that, right? What does that entail? What kind of things are you dealing with as a result of that?
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
Tell us.
And I'm very blessed now. I feel I don't have a lot of symptoms anymore. But at the time,
Thank God.
um, I was very, very arthritic. I couldn't even move my head without it hurting. I was very anemic. I was losing my hair.
Mhm.
I was of like there's 10 markers of lupus and I had like 9 of them. It impacts your skin, it impacts my kidneys
Mm.
and blood. It can affect your heart and your brain. I was not impacted there. The anemia, the kidney function, and the hair loss and the arthritis. Those were probably the biggest.
And it just came out of the blue, right? It wasn't like you have history in the family or something like that.
No history.
Oh, yeah.
I was in graduate school and my eyes, well, that's another thing. Your eyes and mouth get very, very dry. It's called Sjogren syndrome. There's Raynaud syndrome, which your
Extremities.
hands and your feet kind of lose circulation. So I had those two. I kind of forget now.
Yeah.
But I had been very sick because in graduate school, I remember my eyes were so dry, it was hard to drive because the light was so intense when your eyes get really dry. So I had been struggling with it for a few years and just didn't know.
Right. Wow. Okay. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. First of all, it's a lot. No, it's a lot. I
It's
mean,
a lot.
and I'm thinking as a 28-year-old, like, you're not even thinking about illness or anything at that age, right? And then
Mm-mm.
suddenly you get hit with this big, giant, like, diagnosis.
Well, and after my husband died, I was sure nothing else bad would ever happen.
So
That
interesting.
was a shocker.
So interesting that you said that. Oh, and and I don't know why, but some people just get, blow after blow, but it's like you just don't know why these things happen. But
You
yeah,
don't.
you get hit by something so big and you don't imagine something like that or something hard would ever happen again. But okay. So let's keep moving because I want to hear how obviously you're doing good now. So I want to get to that part. So your friend tells you, don't even think about it. What you decide in that moment that, okay, attitude is the only thing I can control and I'm going to change that.
Yep.
So what's next? What starts to happen?
Well, my body was still shutting down. My
Right.
head was all in the game, but my body was still shutting down. So I was actually hospitalized for a month. And then they finally sent me to another hospital with a new nephrologist who pumped me full of chemotherapy for ovarian cancer. Who knows why that works? I don't know. And copious amounts of prednisone. That's pretty toxic as well. It does a number on your body in a number of ways.
That's steroid, right? That's a steroid. Yeah.
Yep. So you get the moon face. You get like you've never ever been that hungry ever.
Wow.
I promise you, you've never been that hungry.
Wow.
And you don't sleep.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's a miracle drug, though. Here I am.
Okay, so that's what helped you get.
I think the prednisone and the chemo, both of which also make your hair fall out. I had a terrible hair year, the whole year.
Girl, you've had it rough. Oh my God. Okay. So, and yet you're able to keep this attitude going despite all of this, or do you feel like you're going up and down and you're just struggling to stay up there? What's going on?
I was in the fight. I wasn't. Once I realized how close I was to dying, I was in. I wasn't giving up. I'd watched my husband die and I watched how he shut down and how I was shutting down. Yeah. And I wasn't willing to give up.
Yeah, that takes a lot, right? When you're dealing with so much pain and agony and hair loss and chemo and steroids and all of the repercussions of that. Did you have moments where you were like wanting to go back to that old you, or you just, once you made up your mind, it was it?
That was it. Good. I wasn't going back.
Yeah. And did you find that the more you kind of put that out there, the more help you got, the more support you got, or was it just regardless of what was around you, you were going to forge forward?
I hate to say this, but when you're that sick, as much as people love you, you're in it on your own.
Mm,
You really are. Because
yeah,
my parents would have taken it from me,
yeah,
and you can't.
yeah.
And
So much.
so
Yeah.
it's just I've always been a really positive person, very
Mm,
hopeful person,
mm,
and it just I had to dig in and
yeah.
and do it.
Okay. That's amazing. I'm so glad you had that in you to find and dig up and use for yourself, right? Because
Thank you.
yeah, it's huge. It's huge. Okay. So you're taking all of these treatments and you're starting to feel better. How long does that take before you can like feel like normal-ish again?
Normalish. I was thinking about it was I was kind of thinking about this podcast. I was thinking out of the hospital again. I had been very sedentary for weeks.
Mm,
I remember trying to jog across a busy street, and my legs weren't really working right. I atrophied.
wow.
I went back to work after 3 months, and that was pretty much when I started to feel normal. I still had the moon face from the steroids because I was on those for a long time. I used to joke that if I turned my head, my cheeks would follow. It was
I
like,
love that sense of humor.
yeah, well, it was just like, you
Yeah, what are you
gotta,
gonna do? Yeah,
yeah, what are you gonna do?
yeah.
You're gonna suck it up when you're gonna do it or you're not. And
I
not
love
doing
it.
it was not an
Yeah.
option.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, listen, I think humor is such a great gift, right? It helps us get through so many tough times. I mean, I'm looking at
Yes,
comedy shows all the time these days because, the world seems like it's falling apart. But, you know,
it is.
yeah, so it's nice to have humor. Okay, so tell us how you're doing now, how things have gotten better, and how are you managing everything? Do you continue to keep fighting? Like, what's your mindset now?
Well, it's just briefly. So, what I did when I started feeling better, I was in a dead end job and I went to another dead end job. And then I entered financial services,
Mm,
right? 90% chance of failure in the first couple of years, and about 80 or 90% male dominated. So,
wow.
I ground my teeth down quite a bit. But I remember there was this, it's like,
Yeah.
that's how I deal with it.
Small price to
There
pay. I said it's a small price to pay.
Yeah, it is. It's
Round
been a
teeth.
wonderful field. But um, I remember this woman that I trained with initially, and she's like, Jeannie, do you ever think about quitting? We were only a few months in, and it was like, wow, it's never crossed my mind. She's like, I think about quitting every day. Well, needless to say, I've been doing it for 29 years, and
Yeah.
she was probably out of the business like 2 months later. So
Wow. So I didn't know that 90%. Huh? That's
it's a very low percentage of survival.
wow. Okay. So this was I mean, your story is incredible. Like, not only did you like, fight the grief, fight your own illness, but you're now in a career that's almost like demanding the same kind of fight,
Well,
right?
once you're in, I was told early on that it's like getting a 747 up in the air. It's a
Yeah.
lot of energy, but once you're flying, it's not so bad.
Yeah. So you just got to get there. You just got to keep fighting until you get
You
up.
got to get there. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. And I like that analogy. I mean, it's like always starting something new is always hard, right? And
It's hard,
yeah.
scary.
Yeah, scary for sure. Yeah, but you persisted, and I'm so glad you did. What if you had to give somebody advice who would, someone who's struggling right now in that deep dark phase and trying to find a way out? What would you say to them?
Wow. Attitude is everything. You can do this.
Yeah.
And I mean, I used to say that to myself all the time,
Was it like a
but
mantra you just repeat it over and over?
it was a mantra. It really, really was. But
Mm,
I also would say, depending on the situation, maybe it's time to pivot and
mm,
do something different. Like
mm,
if it's a professional thing or whatever. I dropped out of a PhD program that
mm.
I was so thrilled to get in, but it wasn't for me. And I quit because it
Wow.
wasn't for me. So
Yeah.
persist, but
Yeah.
sometimes it's not right and you need to make it, maybe you're
Mm.
not like you need to make a change and go in another direction. And that's okay.
Yeah, I love that. So, as much as your story is about pushing through and fighting and staying the route, it's also about giving you permission to stop and change
Yes.
routes if you need to, right? And I think that there's so much wisdom in that because we are surrounded by experts these days, right? There's an expert on everything out there.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
each expert is giving you another reason to keep going. But, sometimes we need to rest. We need to take a break. We need to pause. We need to reflect. We need to reroute, pivot if we need to. Like, I mean, during the pandemic, how many of us had to pivot,
Right.
and change our ways of, showing up in the world? And
Right.
we did it, right? We did it and we persevered and we're here. We're still here. So,
We're
um,
still here and hopefully happy
yeah.
doing what we're doing, whatever that is.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, so true. Thank you for sharing that. I also want to ask you if you had to think about, like, I talk about the inner critic and the inner cheerleader. I call them the witch and the warrior. So if you had to sense like some of that dialogue that was going on in your mind while you were still trying to fight through this, what was the dialogue? What did it look like?
Well, quitting was never an option. We're talking back at the Lupus now, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Quitting was never an option. It just didn't even cross my mind.
Yeah. And when it did, your friend just stopped it in its tracks.
Well, that was a momentary lapse.
Yeah.
Yes. And that was at the bottom of the well. I mean, when you asked what the worst part was, that was it. But after that, I never looked back and I never thought about quitting.
Yeah.
I changed direction.
You did.
Right?
Yeah. I took charge.
My warrior took charge.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love it. Yeah. And I think there's, sometimes when we voice our fears out loud, sometimes there are other people who can catch them for us and say,
yes,
oh, look at this mirror. Like, we don't want to do that. We don't want to ever think like that. And so sometimes even just sharing what you're going through with one more person might be helpful. Would you say?
I absolutely think so. If you don't have a good friend, a good therapist, because you have to get it out there. And sometimes if you can look at it, right? Like put it on the table and move it around and look at it, it's such clarity. Yeah. And then maybe a good decision can be made on the way forward.
Yeah, I love this. Oh my God, so good. Because, our mind can become a lonely place, but it can also become a dangerous place very quickly. So
I 100% agree.
Yeah. So I think what you're saying about bringing it out, writing it out, putting it on paper or telling it to somebody will just give you that bird's eye view of that problem that you can't see when you're in there, right? It's like when you're standing in a forest, but looking at the tree, all you can see is the tree. But when you back up a little, it's like, oh, wait, there's so many more trees here and I'm not alone and I have a whole forest here. So I love that. And I'm so glad that you voiced that fear and you were able to then shift gears and find your way out. How are you doing today with your health?
Great. I mean, I shared I did have breast cancer. I'm just such a lucky person.
Okay.
I just what a pathetic loser.
That's a lot.
That was 5 years ago. But as far as the lupus is concerned, there are days when it's harder to get out of bed because I call it lupus tired. It's just where you can't go. And I give myself that grace and I rest and then I pick it up the next day. It's but very few and far between are those days now. And I take my medication and I expect the best.
Okay. And the
is good. I expect to be healthy.
I expect to be healthy. I love that. Well, listen, you beat the odds more than once, right? So I know that warrior spirit is alive and well inside your mind, and you are going to continue to kick anything that comes in your way out of the way. And I love your attitude because it is really contagious.
Thank you.
It is. And hearing your story makes it that much more inspiring because you've obviously been through not one, not two, but so many different hurdles. And you're here and you're smiling and you're sharing your story and
I'm very grateful.
Yes, I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful for you and your story. So
I
want to thank you so much for being
here. It was a pleasure.
Sharing it so openly with all of us. And I know that people will leave inspired. Tell us, do you have a favorite quote that you can share with us that might be helpful to our listeners?
I hate to keep repeating it. There's two, and they're not original.
That's okay.
Attitude is everything. I've got this.
Yeah.
I can do this, usually.
I love it.
And life is good.
Life is good.
Okay. I mean,
I saw your comment about someone else trademarked it.
But I've made it my own.
Yeah, but maybe you can be one of their spokespeople at some point. Yeah.
Well, it is. I didn't realize I said it so much, but my brother is a pastor, and his very first message at his brand new church was, life is good. and he got it from me. And I thought I was very proud of that.
So you're inspiring brands, you're inspiring pastors. I mean, listen, you're doing all the good things.
Well, he's my brother,
yeah,
but yeah.
it's still amazing. It's still amazing. And
Thank you.
I think this episode should be called Making Lemonade Out of Lemons, because that's exactly what you've done. And you're serving it with a smile. So I love that. Thank you so much again, Jeannie, for being here.
Oh, it was totally my pleasure. Thank you for the time.
Of course. Thank you. All right. Have a great day.